Medicine,
law, friendship. This is Dr. Long and Lawyer Nik. You're listening to the Medico-Legal Brief.
one doctor, one lawyer, and a whole lot of gray area.
Welcome back to the Medico-Legal Brief. I'm here with Lawyer Nik, and I'm Dr. Long. It's a very exciting episode because we're actually here in person today. We're doing our first episode together since we started on this journey.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, I'm in Texas, Long is in Wisconsin. Usually when we get together, we're either going out to eat or just hanging out, but we want to make the time to put together a in-person podcast and have a good discussion.
So I'm really excited. For those who have not already, please make sure you follow, subscribe. We're on YouTube, we're on Spotify. Find all of our social medias and reach out to us and leave comments, okay? So our topic today, we're going to talk about health and just what our overall well-being and how that changes over time. I've always been curious how everyone's individual journeys progresses as they go through life. And so kind of want to hear your perspective on how that has changed.
I've talked about this before. We go through chapters, right? People will call them seasons. Some people call them chapters. But when you're going through chapters, sometimes you're very focused on your health and sometimes you're not focused on your health, at least from a health perspective for myself. Mm-hmm. It's different things that are going on during that chapter, whether it's work, whether it's my wife is pregnant, whether I've had a child, whether it's I'm starting a new business, or maybe it's just a period of stabilization where everything is okay, everything's going all right. And I can really focus in on what healthy is. But I feel like as I've gotten older, my idea of my mortality has become more prevalent. And that scares me. That definitely scares me because I feel like even at 37 years old, I do the math. I'm like, okay, am I at midlife right now? Do I need to start thinking about that? So I think it's a good conversation. And yeah, I'm ready for it.
Yeah. I mean, I just think it's so funny that when we think back to our shenanigans back in college and high school and just how we thought we were, like you said, immortal, stuff we got into and the stuff we did, just, I can't believe we survived and like came out of it alive and flourishing. Just some of the stuff we did was not the smartest stuff to do. But I think back then for me, I don't really feel like I thought about health. I think I went a couple of years without health insurance because at that time there was no Obamacare. You weren't titled into your parents' insurance. So you had to purchase your own, especially during college. So it was different times. I tried to avoid the doctors as much as possible, which is kind of ironic since I ended up becoming a doctor. But that's kind of what I remember growing up is that we always tried to avoid the doctors. I don't know how that was for you and your family.
I think my parents would take us to the doctor for anything. But as I got older, the same thing. When we were in college, we did zero sleep. We ate all the different types of food. We ran ourselves ragged, whether it was with studying or going out and hanging out, going to football games. Like there was no, let me try to be as healthy as possible. I think the point of being healthy was let me try to look my best to go on spring break, right? Everything else was you just kind of enjoyed life. And then as I got older, I started coming to the realization of, okay, I really need to take care of my health. I saw the older I got, the more I focused on health, but the less I'd be willing to go to the doctor. So I almost wanted to take control of it myself until there was a point where I was extremely healthy and I felt like I wasn't getting sick. I felt like I maybe went to go see a doctor once every year, maybe for a physical, or maybe I had the flu or something and I needed just some sort of medicine. I was healthier, but I just didn't really care to go see like a medical professional to assist me in anything.
So where did you find your definition of health? Was that a definition that kind of developed as you went through life? Was it something that you seeked out? Did you get it from the doctor? Like what was your definition of good health? How did you define that?
I think the definition of health was looking in the mirror. And for us, especially in, I feel like the millennial age that we came up, we were always comparing ourselves against the actors and actresses and models and famous people. And like, okay, what do they look like? We came up in a point where you'd walk into the mall and there's a shirtless Abercrombie and Fitch model standing in front of the store. And you're like, okay, is that what I need to look like? And then you also relate it to sports. You and I both did athletics. How well were you performing when you were playing the sport of your choice? You played tennis, I played basketball, we did intramurals. Were you healthy enough to actually perform? And then I think things started switching up where all of a sudden you're told you're healthy, you're fit, but you have high cholesterol. And you're like, okay, what does that mean? Or you're healthy and you're fit, but you're not getting enough sleep. And so this is going to have this detrimental impact on you. All these little ancillary things start coming to play as you get older. And then you start realizing like, oh my gosh, there's more to it than just, am I at a certain weight? Do I look a certain way? am I playing sports a certain way? So,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, definitely that was the definition I had to growing up, especially before medicine, was
Mhm.
just looking at outward appearances, seeing how others looked, six pack abs. Like those are the health definitions. But it's funny that now we looking back, it's not those people. They weren't necessarily always the healthiest. They might have gone on these really huge swings, ups and downs. You
Mhm.
gain a whole bunch of muscle, fat, and then they lose it and pare down to a smaller weight. That's not necessarily the healthiest way to move forward in life.
No.
And so it's just interesting that that was our goal. But I think from a medical perspective, I think it's all about balance. And that's what I've come to find out is that that balance is really important, not only for your health, but also for your own fulfillment, right? Because yeah, you can be perfect in eating the right way, exercising the right way, but are you finding enjoyment out of life? Because then what's the
Mhm.
point of living if you're just doing this like script that you're following and you're not really enjoying the things that you're doing?
Yeah. I think that is something that has carried on with me as I've gotten older. This balance of I want to enjoy life. I also want to be healthy. Then you have the inconvenience of stress that kind of plays its way into it. And then on top of that, your body kind of starts failing on you at certain points. Your joints aren't as strong as they used to be. You pull out your back. And for me, over the last 3 or 4 years, my weight has fluctuated. I've gone in for hernia surgery. I've gone in to have my back looked at. I've gone in to have my head looked at. And I feel like every single time you go in for one of those things, it sets you back 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 months. There have been very specific instances of me being on the path to becoming physically fit again, where I'm running again, or I'm going to the gym, or I'm swimming. And then all of a sudden, it's you have a hernia. We need to get this repaired. You need to stop doing this, that, and the other. And on top of that, you got to have surgery that'll put you out for 3 or 4 or 5 weeks. Then it just resets everything. So that's always kind of been just a frustration. But during those periods, I'm like, well, I guess I should just enjoy life. I can't do anything. So I'll have that extra piece of cake or I'll have that extra beer. Then that all adds up to where when you start to get back on the wagon, it's that much harder to get healthy. One thing that kind of carries over with me, which is something that I think I'm more cognizant of, is during my 20s and early 30s, I used to do a lot of triathlons. I used to run a lot. And I would go to get a checkup, and all of a sudden the nurse or doctor would be like, "You're a runner, aren't you?" And it's because of like blood pressure. And now it's like, hey, we need to look at your blood pressure and you need to be aware of this because you're starting to get into these levels that we don't want you to be at. What a change in life and circumstance that I used to get complimented on something like that. And now it's the acknowledgement of you're doing something bad here. We need to fix it. That's terrifying.
Yeah. So do you find that these medical ailments, do you feel like that is a result of the lifestyle you lived? Do you feel like it's a genetic component?
No, I feel like it is the lifestyle that I live. And I don't want to blame COVID for anything, but pre COVID, going into work, I worked a corporate job in aerospace. It was a lot of you get up in the morning, you're moving at 6 a.m., you're showering. I would try to find time to fit in the gym because I knew I wouldn't get to the gym. So I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'd be at the office at 7 or 8 a.m. I would be standing up, walking around, going to the conference rooms, talking to other people, and then walking throughout the facility to go get lunch, come back. It was very active, not in the sense of basically working out, but just more active. When COVID hit and we all went remote, I'm literally just sitting in front of my desk. You couldn't go to the gym. I couldn't get up and go talk to people. It was a little bit different. And actually, during COVID, I realized I was starting to put on weight. And so I started doing living room workouts. I started going for walks and runs. I actually got really fit during COVID after I came to that realization of the impact it was having on my body. But then moving forward, work got more stressful when the corporations and employers started realizing that people were as efficient, if not more efficient, from their workplace at home. Then the demand started increasing. And I realized slowly I wasn't getting up as much from my computer. I wasn't fitting in that workout. Or it was more so me being on the phone all day long for 12 hours because the computer was there, the work was there, I could get it all done. And then it started going downhill. And so every time I tried to check and adjust, but it's been the stresses of life, I would say. Now, of course, you have genetics. In my family, I'm not rolling around with a bunch of Abercrombie models. My family has their own health issues that I'm trying to be aware of and cognizant of and fight against. But like I truly feel that the health is mine to own and that I don't really have anybody to blame except for me as to why I have the health issues I have, at least right now.
I wish it were easy back in our like back days when we literally just had to call each other and be like, "Hey, you want to get to the gym? Just go walk outside somewhere." I mean, it's just so much easier back then. But now, like you said, the stresses of life, work, family, kids, it really takes away the time that you have within a day. And it's kind of funny because my own journey, going through school, going through medical school, physicians are probably some of the unhealthiest in terms of lifestyle, because we are spending so much time dedicated to our studies. You actually kind of forego sleep sometimes. You don't eat the best because you're just trying to eat quickly so you can go back to studying. And that's in medical school. Once you get to residency, then you're really not sleeping at all. And the stressors of the job itself, it ages you. I think a lot of people go into it with like dark brown, black hair, and then come out of it with just all these extra grades. The career choice absolutely plays into it. But I think the one big thing that I have found in my personal life is that I do have a big family history of high cholesterol. I went one full year where we just ate very, very clean. And even then, my cholesterol was still considered borderline high. So it was honestly at that point that I decided I'm going to watch what I eat, but I'm still going to enjoy the things that I want. So I'm really big into Asian food. So pork belly is a big thing for me. Ramen, pho. I love eating those things. And they're not the greatest. They're not great for my cholesterol, but I try to spread it out across the year so that I'm enjoying bits and pieces of my life. I also want my kids to be cultured and diverse, and I want them to be able to enjoy those flavors too. And so I don't want to just siphon us into just eating salads every single day. I think that there is a fine balance between going too far and then also enjoying your life. So that's kind of where I feel I'm still discovering, and I imagine it's going to change here in a couple of years or maybe a decade or so. But I feel like right now I'm finding myself pretty happy. Yes, I'm a little heavier than when I was in college, and definitely more than when I was in high school. But I'm still able to go out and play my pickleball. I'm still able to keep up with my kids. That's kind of like my gauge at the moment in time.
Now, let me ask you this. I find it very interesting when you have your doctor or your physician, your medical care provider, and they are guiding you. They're telling you what you need to do to be healthy. Now, for most doctors, and you can give your own personal experience, is it a do as I say, not as I do approach where they don't follow their own advice? Or generally speaking, when a doctor is giving the advice that's needed to, live a healthier lifestyle, they're practicing what they preach?
It depends. I'm going to use that lawyer term.
The lawyer term.
It really does depend, because if we're talking about an ailment that the patient has but the physician doesn't have, then yes, what they're giving you, the advice that they're giving you, say you're diabetic and I'm not, and I'm telling you, you need to avoid carbs or you need to cut down on sugars, you need to do that. I'm probably going to try to do the same, but if I'm not diabetic, my diet doesn't have to be as strict as yours. When I tell you and give you those recommendations, it's a recommendation. Now, if we're both overweight or obese and I'm telling you to do certain things and clearly I'm not doing it, then yes, that's kind of a do what I say, not what I do. I think the other thing that is out there is that physicians actually make the worst patients, because we do know a lot of things, but sometimes it means we know too much. And so we're like, okay, maybe we can cut this corner and get around this way, or take this medication so that we can avoid this, so sometimes it's a detriment to be able to kind of navigate that sort of knowledge.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Like I mentioned, all the health issues I've had over the last 4 or 5 years, I've seen a ton of different doctors, a ton of different medical care providers, a ton of different nurses, and you kind of make an assessment on what you're seeing. You're kind of judging a book by the cover once they walk in, and there's a bunch of different things I'm judging. I'm judging how they look, how they carry themselves, just like you would a lawyer, right? You're saying, do you look disheveled? Do you look well kept? What is it that I'm getting out of you? And then it goes to, okay, they're opening their mouth and they're speaking. Do they sound intellectual? Do they sound like they know what they're talking about? Do they sound too busy or frazzled or stressed? So I'm making a split-second assessment on whoever's walking through that door. And then I'm taking the advice and I'm trying to adhere to what is it that they're telling me. Are they basing their assessment on, traditional take on medicine and health? Are they on the up and up? Are they trying to actually live in the present and use technology? Like when I was going to the hernia doctor, he was telling me, hey, I want you to do this. I want you to go to the gym. I also have these 2 or 3 machines that can help. If you want, we can hook you up to this machine. It'll send infrared rays through, and then we'll hook you up with this machine, and it'll help your pelvis and all this other stuff. And I'm trying to go through like, okay, is this snake oil or is this actually a thing that's needed? So I feel like there's a lot of different information depending on the doctor you get, MD, DO, you might have a different approach as to how you can become healthier. And then we've talked about this too, doctor shopping. You might be giving me the perfect advice. If I don't want to hear it, I'll just go find another doctor. I might want the doctor that's telling me it's okay to go eat cake and not run.
And that's the nice thing about health. There's not one specific way to get to that perfect health or that ideal health, because there's multiple ways to get to the same goal, and it's different for every patient. Everyone struggles with a different thing. And so, like you said, doctor shopping, it really depends on whether or not that doctor understands your situation and is able to be empathetic and guide you down that direction, right? I would probably be able to have a better conversation with another Vietnamese individual because we eat the same sort of food. So then I can relate more that way. So things like that, that's where it is really important that you connect with your doctor and find that their advice is something that you can follow, because it's important. That's the only way that you're going to kind of improve your health, is if you follow your doctor's advice, if you actually trust it. But again, back to that snake oil, like everyone's going to be a salesman. Right now, it's that boom in our capitalistic society here. Everyone's trying to make that buck. And so there is a lot to sift through. You don't know what's right or wrong. I mean, physicians are the same way. Like, we are constantly trying to stay on top of modern medicine, but we're also trying to weed through all the different data, all the different research that's coming out, and just making sure that we're giving our patients the best. And so I think at the end of the day, sometimes if a physician is not telling you the newest thing out there, doesn't mean that they don't know it or they don't aren't up with the times. It's maybe they're being a little bit more hesitant and they want to wait and see and watch. Because I was always told never be the first person to prescribe the medication, but also you don't want to be the last person. You want to be somewhere right in the middle, and so that you can help your patient panel. And so, yeah, it's very individualistic in terms of who you find as a physician, who you trust, and then it's also very individualistic for your health journey.
It's funny that you mentioned who you trust, because literally this happened last night. Was talking to my brother and sister-in-law about you coming in, and obviously everyone knows you're a doctor, and somehow the conversation got to GLP-1s, because my sister-in-law, along with my wife, also had a baby. So my niece, she's was born a month after my daughter. So they're kind of going through the same thing of like, okay, we need to lose weight, we need to start eating right, but also managing that and being a mother. And that seems super tough. But she brought up GLP-1s, and then she just goes, well, what does Dr. Long think about that? And I go, fun fact, we did a podcast on this. And at the end of the podcast, he was actually liking the GLP-1s based on the data that he's seeing. And it was almost as if that was all she needed to do the check mark and the approval, because here's my brother-in-law with his best friend that he trusts. And you've talked to her husband, my brother, over other things as well. And it was an immediate, oh, okay, then maybe this is something I could consider in the future. So I think trust is super important. And if you trust somebody and you trust their word and what the advice that they're giving, it's a little bit easier to stomach as to what you should or shouldn't be doing.
What are your thoughts on GLP-1s? I mean, we kind of briefly talked about it on the podcast, but I don't think I ever asked you personally, would you ever do a weight loss medication for yourself? Or is that something you feel like you want to just like figure it out on your own and do it all naturally?
That's a very good question. I feel like my mentality, whether it's through education, through the career, has always been figure it out on your own. I've been stubborn to that point, to where even in my current job, my current career with real estate investing, I've just now started to reach out to peers for different questions and concerns and whatnot. And I've gotten some feedback of, hey, if you would have just asked this question a few months ago, you could have switched and been successful here.
Save you so much more time and
so much more time. But when it comes to the notion of like weight loss help, when I'm looking at philosophically what I need to do, I try to do it all myself. I've always held myself accountable for the things I need to do. If I want to lose weight, I've done it before. What I need to do is I need to start eating right, and I need to go for the run and wake up in the morning and be active and find time to go to the gym. And I feel like for me, at least, that is the baseline. And we've talked about it before. Start with the little things, fix those. And as you progress, if those aren't working, then turn to other things. If I spent 6 months or a year of eating healthy and working out and my cholesterol didn't go down or my blood pressure didn't go down, or maybe I just wasn't feeling myself and I went to a doctor and they said, have you considered GLP-1s, or have you considered testosterone, or have you considered any of these other things? I would be more likely to consider those things and maybe participate in those things, knowing that I've already tried myself to fix it. But I do feel like, at least in America, we are let's make it as quick as possible. Like, I want the quick fix. I don't know if you remember, like back in the day, they had those infomercials for like 60-second abs. You get on this machine for 60 seconds, you'll have abs like the Abercrombie and Fitch model. Those aren't real, right? You got to put in a lot more work. But I feel like with the GLP-1s, I've seen people and what they've done. I'm like, this is really impressive.
Mm-hmm.
But on the backside, I'm almost like, well, what's the catch? Like in 10 years, are we gonna find something out that is very detrimental to health?
Mm-hmm.
Some people, I think, really they struggle with a lot of that, and they're so far removed from what their version of healthy is that they need as much help that they can get to get into the point of being okay. I can live a healthy lifestyle now.
My perspective, coming from someone that prescribes it, I actually find that patients who want to jump on GLP-1s, it acts as a catalyst. I feel like they jump on it because sometimes they've, like you said, they've made the lifestyle changes. They're eating right, they're exercising, they're putting in the hours and the work, and it's not coming quick enough, and they potentially can lose motivation. What this medication can do is it can then re-motivate them or maintain that motivation. Because then, yes, you jump on it, you're losing 1 or 2 pounds really, really quick within the first week, if not the first couple of days. And so I find that it's a very nice catalyst for patients to continue that journey, to continue eating healthy, continue losing the weight. My goal is always to get patients down to the lowest dose possible and even potentially off if they're able to handle that. And so my question for you then is, where is that line that you're going to draw and say, hey, you know what? I've tried everything. Like you said, you're 37 years old. You've been doing it your way up to this point. And you don't think you're in the best shape, but you're not terrible. When is your line drawn? Is it going to be another 30 years and you're like, okay, fine, now I'm going to give in. Now I'm going to try it. What's that line?
This is something I feel like I struggle with just as a person, as a man, as a husband, as a father, because I will have these weird mortality discussions with myself. I might wake up in the middle of the night and the first thought in my head is, how much time do I have left on this earth? Which is weird. I've talked to my wife about it, and I wonder if it's stress induced. What am I accomplishing? What do I need to accomplish? Who do I have to provide for? And I would hate to say that I would need some significant health life event because heart problems run in my family. My grandfather passed away before I was born from a heart attack. And then my uncle has a pacemaker. My dad has a heart monitor that is right there in his chest that goes to a cell phone so they can monitor things. And that's kind of always been out there. Like it's always existed in the back of my head. So I just don't know if it's going to take the significant event or if it's going to be something before that. Right now, I think I can put in perspective that my current situation in life is I have a new business, I have a new daughter, I have, a lot of ancillary things going on. I need to find the time to get back into it. And then I think I can bring it back. But if I still kept going down this where, in 2 or 3 or 4 months, that might be a reality check. And I've had those reality checks where just like going to the doctor and them saying, hey, you have a blood pressure issue, or going to, go play basketball and you realize, okay, I'm not moving as well as I should. Or I go for a run and I'm winded. Like those are all mini reality checks. It's just at what point is the reality check as serious as it needs to be to really jumpstart and push me through into like, okay, I can use some outside help. But I feel, and maybe this is a question for you, I feel like people are just quick to jump into the drugs, to jump into the weight loss pills, would rather spend money on, $800 for a month of Ozempic than spend $150 on a personal trainer for that month. And so there's like this cost balance, this efficiency that occurs. And I don't know, that's kind of what bugs me. And that's my question for you is, should people be paying more attention to the other outlets as opposed to just the medicine?
Of course, obviously in a perfect world, we have everyone eating and exercising the right way. And so that they maintain this from childhood, but that's just not the world we live in. Whether it's in the United States, whether it's in another country, eating is kind of the thing that brings everyone to the table, everyone together. And so food is such a big part of our day-to-day life that it's hard. And especially as these companies continue to grow, more foods come out, weight is just becoming a bigger issue. And so you are exactly like the 80-90% of young males that come into my office, and it's the same conversation every year. And the change event never comes. I watch the weight, it slowly goes up, it maybe comes down a little bit, but then comes back up. And it's this exact conversation. When is it going to be enough for you to decide, you know what? Yes, I'm stressed out. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to find the time. Maybe it is time to use. And again, this is not a medical session. You have not paid me. I'm not giving you any sort of advice. This is just a conversation. But maybe it's time for us to try something. And it's not something for long term. Maybe we try it for a short term, see how it makes you feel. Maybe it does be that catalyst so that you can find that motivation to work out. And I don't really think you need to spend an hour, 2 hours a day.
No.
You could spend 15, 20 minutes. It's how efficient you are with that time, right? A lot of patients, I tell them, it's not about you walking on the treadmill. A lot of people think cardio is like the way to lose weight. No, it's you got to get that heart rate up. And that's when you're burning the calories. But yes, like I said, a lot of patients, especially men in their 30s and 40s, they still think they're invincible most of the time. And they said that they still have time. They're going to keep trying, but they really don't have the time or the motivation or the right perspective yet, because this is kind of the age, 40 to 50s. This is when men, the risk factors go higher. When you talk about strokes, when you talk about heart attacks, being male is one of the risk factors. The older you get is being a risk factor. Family history. Me and you, we already have those going against us. So why wouldn't we use something that is at our beckon and use it to help? And again, I'm not a spokesperson for any of these GLP-1s. They are absolutely very expensive. I have a lot of patients who really shouldn't be on it, but they want to do it, and that's on them. They're not getting it from me. There are some people that are very superficial, and maybe they're like 22 BMI and they want to get down to like 20 or 19, and they are using it in the wrong way. So I do worry and I do counsel for those patients. Everything we just talked about here is literally a conversation I have at least 3 or 4 times a day, because I have a lot of young males and females that come in and they're just right on that cusp. They're not the unhealthiest, but they're not at their best either.
Yeah, it's like they're going to go one way or the other. And most of the time they're going the bad way, not the good way. And I think that that's interesting, because I think it goes to maybe a point of one, pride, being able to do it by yourself. And I also think this was kind of instilled in me in 7th and 8th grade. You're doing athletics and you're in the gym and the coaches are teaching you how to lift. Since that point, I've never thought about going to go get a personal trainer. I know how to lift. I can do it myself. Now, I also see the value in a personal trainer. You have accountability, you have mobility, making sure you're stretching appropriately, making sure you're doing an appropriate warm up and cool down. But when it comes to where my money's going, I don't feel the need to pay somebody to teach me how to bench press. I know how to do that. So I think there's a pride factor that comes along with it. And who's more stubborn than males? Right. We're pretty stubborn. We're silent and we're stubborn. We suffer in silence, and we don't want to talk about things, and then we think we just say we'll figure it out on our own. Right. But yeah, I think that's a very, very good point. And I think that's led to another question I have for you, because we've talked about GLP-1s, we talked about being male. Testosterone. I have very little understanding of testosterone, other than some people, as they get older, they lose some testosterone, so they'll go find somebody who will give them tea, and all of a sudden they'll start getting jacked. But there are also other people I feel like have abused it, and they're using it for weightlifting competitions or physique competitions. So what is it about testosterone from a health perspective that men need to be aware of?
So testosterone is a normal hormone that your body, males or even females, created, and it's supposed to be floating around in your system to regulate, right? And it has ebbs and flows. That's why when you check testosterone, you want to check first thing in the morning. That's when it's at its peak, and you usually want to check it twice in a row to actually definitively diagnose if you have low testosterone. It's very normal for, as you age, your testosterone drops. That's just the normal physiological process. Now, where the fad is going on right now is it an issue to now supplement to combat that normality, that our body is supposed to do? Like, do we want to do that for menopause or periods and pregnancy? Like, that's what we are doing with women's birth control. Like, those regulate their hormones in a way that's not natural. And so I think that's where you kind of get the two-pronged types of physicians. Is you get one that is all in for it. Let's make a buck off of it, and it doesn't matter who, I'm going to put testosterone in them. We see that a lot.
Yeah.
And then there's the other where they're a little bit more cautious. Like let's give it to the right patients. There are a small percentage of males in their younger age who are what we call hypogonadism, meaning they just naturally do not create enough testosterone. And those, they do need to get supplemented because otherwise their life does suffer,
Mhm.
whether that's fatigue, whether that's low libido, energy, it's all tied into that. But guess what? Thyroid also ties into that. Does that mean we want to supplement thyroid? No, because then that can also throw everything else off. Testosterone comes in different forms. It can come in a form where it's just naturally kind of slightly uplifting your testosterone levels, or a really more concentrated version where you may get jacked, where you may use it with steroids and get bigger, but those come with side effects. Those come with detrimental, negative things down the line. I think the biggest thing especially when a 20, 30-year-old comes in asking to get their hormones checked is this really something we would consider? Even if you didn't need it, I wouldn't give it to you, but I would probably send you over to a specialist who may. But the side effects you need to know is, one, it's going to potentially risk your ability to have kids in the future. You're going to have smallish growth. Like it's replacing your testosterone. So your testicles no longer have to create the testosterone. So those are very real side effects. Something that maybe you haven't had in a long time or never had. Now you're getting testosterone. You're going to have acne, back acne, scalp acne. Those are other things that a lot of men don't think about. There's just a lot of side effects that I think the layperson doesn't understand. All they are hearing are the benefits of it. And that's what's going around on TikTok. And that's why it's spread like wildfire right now. Again, something that I also have conversations at least once or twice a week with all ages. And it's tough to have because I understand that they're struggling and they want to have a better life. But it's like you said, they just want this quick and easy fix. And honestly, the majority of the time people who get on it, after about 6 months to a year, they realize testosterone didn't really do anything. And that the original way to fix it is lifestyle. Sleep better, eat better, lose weight. That's literally the foundation of healthy living.
But to that point, with what you just said, you're seeing the sexy, you're seeing what works, you're seeing the testosterone does all these things, but you're not seeing the negative side effects. Feel like with GLP-1s, is that different? Are people just seeing the sexy and seeing what works and not seeing the side effects?
Correct. I mean, just like anytime we go on social media, everyone always just puts out the positives, right? Like you only see vacation videos and pictures. Same thing with GLP-1s. They're seeing all the before and after pictures. Well, there are side effects to GLP-1s as well, and not a lot of people talk about it. I will say that it's just a very small percentage of people. Same as testosterone, though, maybe a bigger percentage of people have side effects and have issues with it. And so, again, counseling the patient, making sure that your physician understands what you're going through, and making sure that you guys are actually on the path that will get you to the health that you want, and that it's not just something you heard online and you want to try it out, because that can sometimes be more of a detriment than you realize.
Okay. Well, that definitely makes sense.
Yeah, I would not. So basically for you, I would not do testosterone.
No testosterone, guys. No testosterone. But GLP-1, we're okay there.
Not necessarily either. Again, patient dependent. It depends, right?
So back to patients. I'm going to pivot a little bit. How do you address or deal with the individuals who seemingly come in, look like they're the most unhealthy individual on the planet, but everything's working out for them, against the person that comes in that is healthy as a horse, but then gets a terminal illness or gets something crazy? I mean, when I think back when we were in college, this TV show Spartacus was a big thing. And I remember the actor in Spartacus was one of the most fit guys. He was on Men's Health, and then he got cancer and passed away. And then we have the actor who played Black Panther. Same thing. Looks extremely healthy. You want to look like that guy. You want to be the superhero. Gets cancer, pass away. How do you manage that with patients? How do you manage that and advise on, hey, we only live once, so I'm going to do all these crazy things. I'll live forever, versus I'm trying to live the healthiest as possible, and they meet an early death?
I think it comes down to life is just really unfair. Because like you said, the exact same example is I've seen morbidly obese patients come in and they don't have high blood pressure, they don't have diabetes, they have no medical illness, everything, their labs look great, but they're 300-400 pounds. I worry about their mental health, but I also worry about when is that ball going to drop when things do start hitting. And then I have that patient that is triathlon. They are competitive their entire life. They are very, very healthy. Their BMI is in a good range, but then they come down with a cancer diagnosis. Sometimes it's just not fair. I don't think that there's a way that we can determine which direction your life will go. And that's why I say it's always about balance. I think that it's really important that we maintain a good range of weight, not necessarily go to the extremes. We don't want to be morbidly obese. I don't think you want to go into the extremes where you're losing a ton of weight and you're overly fit where you're just too muscular, because they also have medical concerns. As you also don't want to be like a bodybuilder, because I don't know if you've kept up, but there's a lot of bodybuilders who end up dying at a really young age. But again, most of those usually have a congenital heart condition, or they're using steroids or other exogenous things that they shouldn't be doing. So again, going to the extreme of overly fit is also not healthy. Letting things go and being too obese is also not healthy. So I think it's a really fine balance in the middle somewhere, where you are still enjoying life, but you're also keeping a really close eye. I use like my cholesterol, my blood pressure as a benchmark. I don't use it as a very strict goal. I'm not going to be reaching for this specific number at any particular time unless my risk factors are increased, right? So it changes as you age. And that's, again, a conversation you have with your physician. Most of us know this, learn this, are taught this. And so if you are finding the right fit, they should be able to explain this well for you to understand, so that we can move through the journey together as we get older and talk about how we can adjust those small things so that we can optimize your health.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, are you familiar with, it's not a hard and fast rule, but like the 80-20 rule, where you try to eat healthy 80% of the time and then you binge 20% of the time? Or even with working out, like I've heard this rule several times, where if you're going to go out and you're going to eat healthy 80% of the week, and then 20% eat like trash. If you're going to go out and drink, same approach. If you're going to go work out, have a good workout 80% of the time, and then 20% you could slouch off with your workout. Has that ever been something that's come across your table as far as health?
I've never heard that. I would say it should be closer to like 50-50.
Really?
Yeah, I think you need to have true balance. You should be able to enjoy, but you also really do need to put your foot down and work at it.
I think that that's unique, because like for us, we really like to travel, right? And you talked about food. Food is, I wouldn't say it's a crutch. It is something that is an experience, brings people together, brings cultures together. When me and my wife go on vacation, we go travel, we know that we're in a city and there's a certain cuisine or a certain culture there. And sometimes you're just going from one spot to another, where you're not even eating your whole meal because you're like, I want to save room for my next meal. And then you throw in a little bit of alcohol in there, and before you know it, you're 8,000 calories in because you didn't know any better. And so I think like your food discussion and your balance is putting a lot of stuff into perspective, because we only get to live once, and being able to enjoy life is really important. But I guess enjoying life in moderation is important. And so I do have another question for you, and I think that this goes to extremes. So my grandfather passed away. He was an alcoholic, so he suffered from alcoholism, heart attack, right? He was afraid to quit because he thought quitting would kill him. And in fact, it seemed like that's what happened, that he started trying to quit drinking, and that's what ended up leading to his heart attack. Is that something that exists in medical, to where you have a bad habit, you're trying to switch things, and by the very nature of switching things, you end up causing more health issues than actually existed at that time?
Honestly, I don't know, but I hear that story. My dad's the same way. He's a smoker and refuses to quit because he thinks that the day that he quits smoking, every cancer will hit him.
Yes.
And honestly, I think it's true, because he is not the healthiest person, but he's getting through day by day. I don't even know how he does it, but no, there is not any data, research, science behind what happens there. I can only assume or speculate that maybe your body is so used to a specific way of life that all of a sudden now you're throwing in a stressor by not continuing to do what you've done. And then you have to weigh the balance. Like, is the stressor of the alcohol, the tobacco, is that worth maintaining? Is it going to give you a longer life than versus quitting it? And that's where it's hard. I, of course, will always recommend we try to stop and try to come off of things. In my personal experience, majority of patients do really well. It's a struggle. They fall off the wagon, come back on, fall off again. But it's a lifelong battle for sure. But I would say that the majority of people come out doing really well, and 5-10 years down the line are very thankful that they've stopped drinking or stopped smoking. That we do know, that is, if you are able to quit smoking, if you are able to cut out alcohol, it does extend your life at the end.
Okay.
We do have that data. But in terms of those freak cases where they do quit and then all of a sudden they get all of these new medical issues that I'm still waiting for someone to give us that answer.
No. All right, Long. Well, not medical advice here, but if you were to give the non-medical advice to our listeners, kind of like as a starting ramp, a starting point to focus on their health, what would be your quick Spark Notes version go-to?
Yeah, so this is something I'm actually going to look to you guys for this, because Nick, you're going to hear it, but I think our audience is going to be really important to hear this. This is something that a conversation I try to have with every one of my patients is there's really three main things that you really need to focus on. Is one, food. The biggest part of our daily lives, we're eating 3 meals a day. I say that you find the right schedule for you, whether that is snacking throughout the day, or if it's truly the 3 meals a day. Just make sure that it keeps you full enough and that you're not overeating. So portion size is really, really important. I always tell patients you use the 2 palms of your hands, and you use your one palm for protein, the other palm for vegetables and fruit. And then the fingers will be like a little small dessert. And then the other fingers will be your carbs. And it's spread across that. And that's all you should be eating. And I don't know the audience out there, but majority of us do not just eat that amount. We usually eat double or triple that amount, including myself, right? So this is all, it's habitual. It's something that we've grown up doing. And so it's a really hard habit. But I think that if we can reinvent our brain or refocus our brain to eat those small portion sizes, it is really helpful. That's the foundation. Next thing is exercise. I always tell patients, let's focus in on about 10 to 15 minutes of exercise every single day, but I want it to be really high intensity. I want you to try to maintain that heart rate above 170, 180 if possible, for as long as you can. And if you're going to take a break, take it for maybe 20, 30 seconds and then get right back on it. Obviously, if you have chest pain, shortness of breath, dizziness, lightheadedness, don't push your body that hard. Take a break and work back up to it. But the more that you can sustain that heart rate, the more calories you're gonna lose. For people who are morbidly obese and this is the first time they're actually exercising, maybe all you have to do is go up a couple steps. Your heart rate gets up to that rate. That's great. Keep doing that. Keep doing it for the 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes a day, and then you'll be able to build up more and more over time. The goal eventually is to make it a consistent thing that you can do either daily or every 4 to 5 days out of the week would be ideal. 30 to 60 minutes of high intensity workout would be a good balance between not overdoing it, but also still enjoying it. And then the very last thing is mental health. I think mental health really plays into how we love ourselves, how we treat ourselves. And if you are not in the right headspace, you're not going to want to live and do the right things. And so I think it's really important that we go out and we socialize. And that's why I am an advocate for social drinking. And I'm not talking about drinking every single night because you're out socializing, but we should socialize and every once in a while enjoy a drink or two if that's what you need. Not all of us need to drink. People go through life without drinking and do really great too. Again, the social aspect is what I really harp on. And so whether that is finding a sport you enjoy, whether that's finding a hobby that you enjoy. Heck, I found that they do jigsaw puzzle competitions. And I was trying to invite some of my friends. Apparently, I'm the lame one. I'm the only one that wants to go do jigsaw competitions. But I feel like those are the small little niches that you just need to find something that you enjoy so that you can go out, meet new people, and socialize and get that into that mental space.
Yeah.
And so those are like the three main things that I always talk to my patients about. And I think those are the most important things, yes, to get you where you need to go. And it's different for every person, right? Everyone's hands are a little different, so you can enjoy a different portion size. Mm-hmm. Everyone's exercise limits are different. But yeah.
Well, we definitely appreciate that, Dr. Long. I think this has been a great conversation as far as trying to stay healthy, trying to jumpstart into health. You know, we've talked about a few topics here. Look back at our previous podcast. We have some conversations on Ozempic and GLP-1s. We have conversations on sleep. We actually have conversations on, you know, being a doctor and a lawyer and how in those high stress careers, whether it's a doctor or a lawyer or something else, where you can, you know, find a better work-life balance. But with that, you know, it's been a pleasure sitting here with you and actually doing the podcast. But this has been the Medical Legal Brief. I'm Lawyer Nik. That's Dr. Long. We appreciate you guys tuning in. If you guys haven't already, please go like, subscribe, comment. We're on YouTube, we're on Spotify. New episodes every Wednesday. And hopefully moving forward, we'll have a little bit more of these like in-person sessions as this has been really fun. So thank you guys and y'all have a good one.
Yes, we're doctors. Yes, we're lawyers. No, this podcast is not medical or legal advice. Do not take anything we say as a reason to perform your own heart surgery, represent yourself in court, or diagnose your neighbor's rash. This is for entertainment only. Think of it like hanging out with your smartest, wittiest friends, not a substitute for an actual appointment. If you act on anything we say without talking to your own professional, that's on you. Seriously, don't do that.